Cox.
Here.
Kelly Sutherland.
Here.
Lawrence Green.
Present.
Michelle Weber.
Here.
And Heather is having fun in Hawaii. Okay, so with regard to comments from the evening, I think we've got a pretty full agenda. I don't have any comments except to say I'll be glad when Gino's back. So at this point, if we have Jameson introduce you and you can make comments as our CEO.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few items for the board. One, you're going to hear a presentation today about our strategic business plan and update. We are in the process of doing a refresh on that plan, and we're going to really refresh it to the items of where we think we need to go and where we need to be as an organization. So we're going to be looking at that. You also hear about mobility management. I think that is the goal of what LTD needs to be for our county at some point. So that strategic business plan, when that comes back to you in a future work session, will be keyed in that direction. That'll also be tied to our long-range strategic plan, which needs to be refreshed. We're a little upside down in that we have a strategic business plan, but haven't refreshed our long-term business plan. So we'll be revisiting that as well. Secondly, there have been a couple items in the media. One, you may have heard about red paint and some red lines. That is for our MX, and that is a safety activity that's happening to help make sure that cars know what the lanes are and that MX is in this lane, and just to increase our safety there. It's not a unique thing to Eugene or Springfield. That is something that's happening with quite a few BRT lines. And in fact, we recently approved a study with the National Academy on red lines themselves. The second item you'll hear about is our community outreach and communications assessment program that we're doing, project that we're doing. We're putting together, you'll recall, a steering committee that's made up of external community members to guide that process. Staff will serve as a resource. So now we're starting to solicit for steering committee members. So that has made the media as well. Last week, staff and I and Tiffany Edwards and I spent some time, or the other week rather, down in Cottage Grove, getting to know the council members there, the city manager's office, the chamber. We sampled some of the services down there, spent time with the South Lane Wheels team, and got some insight into how our services are working there. Well received. We do intend to continue to build those relationships and to be a part of that community. And finally, I'd like to invite you again to our company cookout, which will be held this Sunday at Lively Park from 4:30 to 7:30. The key thing with that event is that we'll be recognizing all of our retirees that retired during the pandemic. We weren't able to do that during the pandemic, so we wanted to bring them together and do that there. So we extend that invitation to you all as well. If there are any questions, I will be quiet.
Thank you. Are there any announcements or additions to the agenda from any board members? Okay, we are moving along. So, audience participation. And I need to, will you read that or do I read that? Or is there anyone else on Zoom that wants to?
You don't have to read it for me. I know the.
Okay. You ready? Rob Seiko? Do you want a drum roll?
No. Good evening, Vice Chair Cox, members of the board, staff. I'm Rob Zako, Executive Director of Better Eugene Springfield Transportation. I just want to give you a little update on the APTA grant that we would not have gotten without your support, LTD's support, effort that we're calling Better Streets. We've been beta testing it on campus over the last month and reach out to students about Franklin Boulevard. And so far I've gotten over 200 responses of what people think about Franklin Boulevard. We feel like we've got a pretty good instrument or mechanism for reaching out to people. What I want to do just the next couple minutes is give you a little preview of what's coming next and a little bit of behind the scenes. This is a local coalition grant that APTA has awarded across the country because they understand that transit agencies can't do big things without, you can't do it on your own. You need a coalition of public, private, nonprofit partners. And so they've given us a little bit of money to help bring together that coalition. But what does it mean to be part of a coalition? What would we be in support of? We're in support of better streets generally. We're asking people if streets are good enough or if they could be better. We're using very simple language and trying to meet people where they are, but we're developing an instrument where we're asking people to sign a pledge or a resolution or something like that that has a few principles. Better streets for people and businesses. We need to move people. We need to serve businesses along the streets. They need to have access for their customers, their workers, their suppliers. And we want to make sure that streets work for everyone or that everyone has an alternative. So Franklin Boulevard, does that mean that it has to have roundabouts? Maybe, maybe not. Do you have to have bike lanes along Franklin Boulevard? Maybe, maybe not. But if you're a pedestrian, you should be able to cross that street safely one way or another. If you're a bicyclist, you should be able to travel east-west in some way safely. If you're a business, does that mean you get all the parking you want? Maybe, maybe not. But do your customers, suppliers, and workers need to have a way to get to you? Absolutely. So we're developing this instrument. We're going to reach out to individuals, community leaders, businesses, partner organizations, government agencies, and ask everyone to join the coalition that we share these values, these principles. We'll be rolling this out next week, announcing to the public, and then working on this through the summer. The grant has to be done by September 1st, so it's going to be pretty quick. We'll update you over the next couple of months. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rob. Can I ask a question? When you said this project is a part of a coalition, those coalition individuals or organizations are being recruited now? Or was the proposal including specific coalition partners?
The way that we pitched it to APTA is we said we best formed as Better Eugene Springfield Transit 11 years ago, and we had a coalition back then in support of West GMX. We haven't been able to keep that coalition together over the last 11 years because that was a long time ago and no additional MX lines have been built in that time. So we told APTA we want to go back to our original partners, bring them back together, say we've upgraded this. We're not just about transit, we're about transportation choices and safety, and refresh that or update it to the present. But we want to bring in new coalition members. We want to reach out along Franklin Boulevard, along Main Street in Springfield, along River Road to our community and say, we believe we all need choices. This is what we believe. Join us and make that offer open to everyone.
And in rural communities as well?
For this particular project, we're focusing on major streets and it's in the Eugene Springfield area. That's how we're branding it right now. BEST, as our name indicates, is primarily an urban organization. We do work throughout Lane County on safety issues, but those tend to be different and the way that it's communicated and branded would be different. So we can only do so much with $10,000.
Okay, thank you. Other questions from board members? Good luck. I think that sounds like a worthy project. So are there any other people wanting to speak or testify? No one online? Okay. Thank you. So we're going to move to the mobility management strategy and Andrew Martin.
Great, thank you. Really excited to be here tonight. We've been working on this project for a while. I'm going to be as brief as I can so you have more time to ask questions. Some of you have been following along for a long time. Others have gotten a little bit less from us. So I want to start kind of at the beginning. If you go to the next slide, please. So I really like this definition of mobility management, just so we're all clear what we're talking about. Mobility management is an approach to designing and delivering transportation services that starts and ends with the customer. It's a community vision in which the entire transportation network works together to deliver the transportation options that best meet the community's needs. And I think that that is really different than I think the traditional transit model of we put a bus out and then if it works for you, you can come take it or not, right? We're talking about the customer's needs and putting those first. We're talking about working with partners, both public and private sector, to make sure that our community can get where they want to go. So that's really what we mean by mobility management. The strategy in the packet is intended to be a high-level document. Right? It doesn't say do this project or that project. It's meant to be a really high-level strategy outlining how LTD can be successful in this kind of environment, working on trying to really improve transportation for our community. The kind of nuts and bolts, the really in the weeds kind of details, we're going to get to that stuff. I'll explain later. But it's really after mobility management's incorporated, I think, in all of our work that we'll start to bring that type of work to you. Next slide, please. So we've gone through a process starting in late 2021. We got our consultants on board. We started out doing our background research, interviewed other agencies working on this topic, looked at the academic research. That winter, we did some public outreach, talking with people, not asking them how do we solve every problem, just to get a feel for where people were at, how they want LTD to approach this type of work, what kind of issues they face in a broad sense. Right, we're not trying to solve every problem with this study. We're just trying to get an idea of where the community's at. We took that, we did a lot of technical work. We have a lot of memos that kind of add a lot of nuance to what's in your packet. We're going to share all that on our website. We'll get all that up soon. So there's actually a lot that underpins kind of this high-level document. Whether that be the case study, we did a lot of data analysis of where there are gaps in our system today, talked with other agencies, private providers about, what they're doing to fill those kind of gaps. Then we kind of started to package all of this. We developed a series of deliverables, some of which are in the packet, some of which are more staff oriented. And that's how we're going to work towards implementation after I believe we're asking you to adopt it, this strategy in the consent calendar at the next at your regular meeting after this work session. Next slide, please. So really big takeaways from going through this process. I think it's really important that everyone walks away from this meeting understanding that LTD in many ways is already a mobility manager. We have things like our RideSource call center. John probably should correct me. I think we have something like 19 programs operating through the RideSource call center, something like that. It's around there. It's a lot. And for our customers, it's one call, right? That's kind of actually we're a national model in that respect. We also have done a lot of work with our partners like Peace Health Rides, City of Eugene, to work on other options. We've done pilot projects like MGO and the Cottage Grove Connector, and we've been really successful with those types of projects in a lot of respects. So we're already doing this work. This strategy is about how we do that in a coordinated way and how we embed that kind of in our philosophy as we're doing all of the things we do here at LTD. Next slide, please. So I just want to go through some of the really kind of big picture things. When we went through and we did all this work, we wanted to start out just, does this help LTD to fill gaps in our community? And the answer is a resounding yes, that approaching our service this way is a very effective way for an agency like LTD to start to think about how we can fill gaps in the transportation network and connect our community, which is our mission. We also heard from the public that there's an interest, right? We got, I think, about 350 responses from people. We heard about 300 or 350 different answers on how we can better serve people. But right, the way I interpret that is there is a need out there and that there's an interest in LTD filling that need in a whole variety of different ways. So we believe that LTD should be playing a key role in providing mobility in this region with mobility management as our approach. Next slide, please. Some other things to know. We talk about new things, filling new gaps, right? It's really important that we remember that fixed route service is the backbone of what LTD does, right? It's where currently most of our money goes. That's where most of our ridership is. A lot of other services complement fixed route. And I think that that's how we're going to have to think about mobility management in the future. It's not getting away from fixed route. It's doing things that complement and build on the existing investment in fixed route transit that we currently provide. So with that said, there are a lot of other tools that we're not using today. There are a lot of options for LTD to explore and to pursue as we're thinking about how we can serve our community. Some of those are in that graphic that's probably impossible to read on the screen, but it is in the mobility management strategy document in the packet. And really it's that's intended to show, right, we're thinking about how to deploy these tools. They're all effective in different contexts for different people, for different types of trips. But we do have a lot of tools that I think we could be exploring depending on the type of problem we're trying to solve. Finally, piloting projects is going to be really important for us to be successful. A lot of these things are new to us, new to our area. And so we want to make sure we're getting it right. We want to make sure we're using our taxpayer money effectively, but also that we're serving our community the way that they want to be served. And so with that, piloting projects, making sure we're doing a good job, iterating, trying new things and improving again, that's going to be really important. And we've developed a guide to running pilots just because of the need to do that effectively. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to add a little bit of nuance to how we're thinking about doing this because the context is really important. You've heard me say context a few times, I think. We, in the document, break out how we're thinking about different areas in 3 ways. We've got transit opportunity areas where we do have about 41% of our population and about 59% of our jobs already with pretty good access to transit service. And the number one thing we can do for them is to keep investing in fixed route transit service. But that also means that we've got 29% of people that are, we call it first mile, last mile opportunity areas. They're just a little too far to walk to transit, but they're not really that far away. And so finding ways to connect that 29% of our population to existing transit is a great way to leverage the investment we're already making. And then we've got another 30% of people that are more than 3 miles from transit. Those are people who, we need to think about that. That's a lot of our rural context, right? It's there's even a lot of nuance there. Is there a big difference in being in Cottage Grove and needing to get to a doctor's appointment a couple miles away in town and someone who lives out Territorial Highway outside of Bonita? And so those areas, there's, I think, a lot of complexity, different types of services in each of these areas will be necessary if we're going to effectively serve our community. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, the strategy document is not intended to have all of the kind of details about how this gets implemented. We've developed what we call a decision-making framework, which is really a way for staff to have a structured conversation and get at what roles we should be playing and what partners we need to bring to the table to deliver some of these things. We have our guide to running pilots. We have a whole bunch of technical memos that have information that's really great for staff as we're trying to implement this work. The public's welcome to look at it, but it's pretty dense. You have to be very interested. We'll get it online though, so everyone can do their late night reading. And then also we're starting a mobility management task force that's part of, I think, the strategic business plan refresh. So that group, Jameson's asked me to figure out how do we get this going. We want to see results. We want to get this throughout the organization. We want to get going now. So next slide, please. Our next steps after we adopt this will be to really internalize this work, right? We're going to be working with the organization so that everyone here at LTD takes this as part of their job. They understand how we're going to be implementing this. We have to get it throughout everyone. It can't just be me and Tom sitting in the back dreaming up how we can do this service. It's got to be in the whole organization. We're going to be developing pilot projects with public and private sector partners. We have STIF funding identified for fiscal 25, but one of my goals is to try and find ways that we can either through existing partnerships, new funding opportunities, however we do that, we want to start delivering to the community. I don't want to tell people to wait until fiscal 25 before we can start delivering this type of service. So we're going to be looking at that. How can we do something in the next year until we get that pilot project funding through the STIF process. We're also going to be engaging with our university research partners. We have a lot of great academics in the area at the University of Oregon, LCC, and others. We want to leverage those. We want to be on the forefront. So we want to work with our academic community as well. We're going to be looking for new sources of funding, new ways to leverage existing partnerships. And then I think you've heard Tom talk about what he's calling LTD 2.0, right? But this mobility management concept needs to be embedded. And it's a great time because we're updating our strategic business plan. As Jameson mentioned, we need to update our long-range transit plan, which we want to actually call long-range mobility plan, to reflect that this is a different way of thinking than we traditionally have. And other plans, we're going to start embedding this philosophy throughout all of that work. And that's where you'll start to see a lot more of the very specific things. Comprehensive operations analysis coming up as well. So next slide. This is the last one. Just because we talked to SPC about this, I just wanted to let you know what happened when we went to the SPC meeting. Unfortunately, we did not have a quorum. We didn't have enough members there. So we could not ask them for a recommendation. When we talked with SPC, we heard two things. The first was general support for this, right? It wasn't a vote, a recommendation, but the people who were present said that they supported this strategy. But there's also, I think, an interest in getting things on the ground. They wanted to see tangible results. They said this high-level strategy is great, we support it, but we want to see action. And so we're going to start delivering on that. But the first step is just to adopt the strategy, and then we'll start getting into those details. So with that, I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? I would just like to say that appreciated recently, John, when you put together with Mobility International and really talked about how this is a global initiative. And it was really, it was very inspiring to see how people in other countries really were taking this seriously and looking to LTD as a model. So congratulations on that. Other questions or comments? I have a couple questions. When you say tangible results soon, what does soon mean?
Well, I think it depends. Jameson's asked us to move as quickly as possible. As I mentioned, there's funding that we have identified in fiscal 25, which is a full year away from now.
Right.
But as I mentioned, part of what we're working on with the Mobility Management Task Force, I'm getting some group of people from different departments and saying, what partnerships do we have today? It's not necessarily just a question of more funding. It could be a question of more funding. So where do we find that? It could also be a question of how do we leverage partnerships we have today, assets we have today, whatever that is, with our community to make things happen. And so, Jameson, do you have anything else to add?
I do.
Yeah.
So I think this is a really good conversation. A lot of transit systems since 2015, 16 have implemented pilot programs in a way where there hasn't been a structured framework to really understand what we're trying to solve for, to understand, what we're layering over, and to also understand how communities would really use them. So I think this is really important for us to not rush headlong into something right away, but to really be thoughtful in how we do it. That being said, the beauty of transportation planning is that it's very thorough. The other side of that is that it's very long. And the COA and the ride source evaluation are going to take some time, up to 2 years or so, 18 months, 2 years. And during that time, we know that there are opportunities for us to look at test environments for various things. Case in point, down in Cottage Grove, we're doing mobility on demand pilot there. We went down, when we met with the folks down in Cottage Grove, we learned that a lot of the trips are being booked through the call center rather. Why is that? Well, we have an idea, maybe it's the phone type or the passenger profile, or it could be lack of Wi-Fi in certain areas. There are things that we can layer on to that pilot itself in understanding how, what the impact of providing these would be. And we certainly could search out willing partners to provide the hardware. think there's also other case studies that we're looking at in terms of mobility in certain parts of the urban area. But we really want to focus on some of our rural placements because that's a lot of our service area. So while we do the due diligence on the studies to understand how people are interacting with our services today, we're also going to be looking at how do we sprinkle in pilots to understand how they'll be using them in that meantime as well. I think that's important. And we've been doing that, and we have quite a bit of data already just based on the services that we have running today, that exist today. So I wanted to point that out as well. This is a key part in the opportunity for answering the question of what our communities need us to be. This is a key part to that. And I think walking down this path in a structured way, but not in a way where we're going to let the perfect get in the way of the good in all cases. Is the way that we need to proceed. So we'll be building this along with community. Again, the community outreach and communications assessment. I'm trying not to use COCA. We use that all the time. I'm trying not to use the acronym. Will be the foundation for how we engage. But this mobility management strategy will be the strategy for what we choose to engage with, what type of service model based on those communities.
One of the questions I have is that the getting information from people was in 2021. So has there been any reevaluation or kind of a update based on COVID, or you feel like that's still pretty much the same?
I think it's pretty much the same. Our goal was not, we were pretty clear with folks. We're not trying to document every issue in the community with transportation. We're not trying to get a random sample to figure out if, 52% of people want LTD to solve a specific problem.
Right.
We were trying to surface big picture issues. Are there places we hear about a lot? We actually got a lot of we got a ton of people from rural areas responding. We heard everything from LTD should look at flying cars, not a joke, to just give me more bus service. So we heard the whole range of things you might expect. And that was kind of the goal, right? Just to get a big picture look at what some people in the community think. And it was pretty overwhelming, actually, that a lot of people felt that LTD was a good, we were a good agency to try and fill some of these issues. So that was kind of the point. So from that perspective, I don't think anything's changed. I think that 350 people will still give us 350 different answers. They might be slightly different answers today than they were in 2021, but or it was actually January 2022, but they might be different, but big picture is still the same.
Sure. And when you said the mobility task force, is that internal within LTD, or is it outside people invited to participate?
It is internal. We are working with our partners externally, right? The cities, Cascadia Mobility, anyone else who gives us a call. We want to have a conversation about, what can we deliver to the community? It starts with a conversation, right? There's a decision process document that I put in the packet. It kind of outlines, there's our internal group on one side, and we might come up with ideas and reach out to people. We also want people to reach out to us. If, there are a lot of people with really great ideas in the community, and we want to hear from them because we're not going to think of everything. We're very open to working with people. So if you're watching, please give us a call with your great idea. Happy to work with you.
Well, there you go. Somebody's got one.
And if I could, that task force will also help to feed the strategic planning committee. So they'll be keeping an eye on different strategies that are going around across the country, helping to educate inside the house. So folks inside the building know what's going on and have an understanding, but also for a strategic planning committee, making sure that they understand, what we're looking at and what the context of what we're looking at is. So we're not coming into those meetings cold.
Great. Thank you. This has been your slog for a long time, so.
Yeah, it's
good
been a
for
while.
Sticking with it. Yeah. Okay, well, we're looking forward to soon.
Thank you.
Okay. And Amy, we're going to hear from Amy with the strategic business plan.
Just gonna. I'll grab my phone here. I'm gonna stand up at the podium. Because I'm gonna gesture at this screen quite a bit, so. Okay. All right, so I guess I'll share the presentation too. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'm here to talk to you tonight about our Q3 fiscal year 23 strategic business plan results. And so we always start out mission, vision, values. This is in every slide deck. I think sometimes people just skip through it at this point because we've seen it so much. I'm not going to because I'm the strategic business plan manager. And I think this is a really important slide because it's the foundation of what we're doing here. And I think it's aspirational in some ways, but the whole point of a strategic business plan is to figure out, well, how do we operationalize these aspirations? And so that's what we're trying to do here. We're doing our best. Tonight, I'm going to talk to you about kind of where we came from, where we are, where we're going, and what the results look like as we're going through it. So I know we have some newer board members, so I'm going to go through this a little more slowly than I usually would and just talk about how we got to this point. So we adopted our strategic business plan that we're working on now in September of 2021. It's a 3-year plan. And each year we take the time to actually go through and refresh the plan, which mostly focuses on the tactical work. So making sure we're doing the right work at the right time with the right people. You can see we're at the little starred spot, Q3 fiscal year 23. So we've been here before. We are following through on the commitment we made to report quarterly to the community on our results. And the big goal here is really transparency. And we want to commit to something and show how we're following through. So we're going to talk about how we're doing in our 5 success outcome areas. So a success outcome is kind of a broad category of the kind of effort we're making in specific areas. So we have customer satisfaction, employee engagement, community value, financial health, and sustainability. And within each of these areas, we also have performance metrics that we're looking at, or key performance indicators. There's 24 of those total. And of those 24, 9 of them update quarterly. So that's what we're actually going to look at tonight is those 9 metrics and how we're doing in those across the areas where we have quarterly metrics. And I'll also let you know about some of the measurements that will be coming in the next round of reporting. But the whole idea here is that we have, it's an iterative plan. Right? We're doing the right work at the right time with the right people. We're striving to. We know that we're not going to ever get that perfect. So we need to revisit it continuously and take that kind of continuous improvement mindset. But we're also trying to stay really founded in these key performance indicators, right? So there's metrics that we're not changing, that we're looking at over time to see if the work we're doing is the right work with the right people at the right time. So let's talk about our score. How are we doing? And tonight I'm going to introduce to you, we're going to do kind of a show and tell, I guess, on our strategic performance dashboard. It's called TransDash. It's part of a national partnership with a number of other transit organizations produced through our partners at Transpro. And the first thing I want you to notice here is this is on LTD's site. This is an active dashboard that you can access through ltd.org. Just ltd.org/performance. There it is. This is updated quarterly again, and it's just a kind of a high level overview of our focus areas. What are the key strategic areas that we're looking at? And then we've got some scoring going on. So we're going to take a look at this overview. Hopefully. Okay. And this is our score. So this is the current, these 5 scores represent this current strategic plan that we're working on. So customer satisfaction, overall, we've earned 29.1 out of 30 points. Employee engagement, we're 20.5 out of 25. Community value, 12.6 out of 20. Okay, we'll talk about that. Financial health, 11.4 out of 15. Talk about that too. And sustainability, 9.5 out of 10. And there is a whole process to how these scores are developed and how they're ranked. There is ranking in these scores, but overall, there's underlying metrics that feed up and to create these scores. So that's how it looks, high level. We're going to dig in now to the specific scoring. And again, I mentioned we have 24 measures. So now we're in our customer satisfaction area. Move this back a little here. Okay. So 24 metrics. There's 9 that update quarterly. Within customer satisfaction, there's 3. So I'm going to hone in on 3 metrics for you right now. The first one is on-time performance. We're exceeding our goal there. We continuously perform on time, in part because our planners are constantly monitoring that and adjusting to make sure that we have a reliable schedule for our riders. Okay, and then the next one that we have that updates quarterly is accidents per 100,000 miles. We're currently at this is total accidents. This includes all accidents, including ones that end up being classified as preventable. So this is just a high level, big picture accidents. We're at 3.52. Our goal is 2. I would like to highlight, if we look at this one here, you look down quarter over quarter, we did improve significantly. So I think this is really important to highlight. If you look, again, looking down here, this is last quarter, we were at 5.09. This quarter, we're at 3.52. And I think that's significant because, right now you see this is red. People don't like seeing red usually. That's not always a good sign. But to me, it's a thing about how do we get curious and see what's going on. And if we look there's more to look at underneath, right? We can keep digging down into the layers, but at a high level, what I see is, okay, well, it's red still, but we're going in the right direction. So that's good. And then we have complaints, and complaints, we actually were, last quarter, we were at 5.09. That's not right. Hold on. Okay. There we go. So we had 12 complaints. We're down to 7.67 this quarter, and that puts us at actually below our goal. So we went from being we're missing our goal to hitting our goal in that area. Okay, so next we have financial health. So let's talk about that one. On the main dashboard, you see here we're at 76% of our total goal. This is in the yellow zone, which means we want to watch, want to pay attention, what's going on there. Operating cost per boarding, we're at 90% of our goal. Maintenance cost per mile, we're at 68%. Vehicle hours per labor hour at 73%. So what is going on here? The best explanation for financial health metrics, these are updated quarterly. The main thing that went on here is we had our VEBA contributions recorded in January. So we always expect our operating costs to go up for Q3. In addition, we had our union wage adjustments. So that's going to be something that impacts these values over time. So overall, this is not unexpected. These are expected results. We know operating costs are up, which is going to mean our efficiency metrics are down. And so the key thing here is how are we going to evaluate the long-term assumptions that have gone into those metrics and then use that to guide future decision-making. And that'll be something that's reflected in the strategic business plan refresh. And then the last metrics that are updated on a quarterly basis are in our sustainability section here. In sustainability, we actually achieved our greenhouse gas emission goal in the first round of measuring. So that's really great. Our fleet transitioning to electric, we're a little bit behind, but there's that was expected. That's we know the reasons there. And then our ridership goal, we're at 62% of the goal that we originally set for ourselves. I think if you look at this one, I think something really good to see here. It's kind of subtle, but if you look over time, since we've been reporting this as part of our strategic business plan, it's never gone down. It's only gone up. So that's a good sign. As far as, how do we get back to this pre-pandemic goal? That's from my friends in planning and the Mobility Management Task Force and people that know much more about those things than me to try and figure out, but I'll always be happy to measure and track and report. Okay. So before I'm going to go back to the slide and we can come back to this in questions, but those are the metrics that change quarterly. So there's 9 out of 24. Something that we're going to be looking at in the long-term plan is what are some of the things that we should be measuring quarterly across all the areas, right? Because you can see I didn't mention anything in employee engagement or in community value. And it's not because we're not measuring, we have measurements there. They're just tied to survey data, right? And we're not going to survey people every quarter. That's not a good idea. So we have to go back to the drawing board to think about what are the real, in addition to what we're already measuring, we want those annual metrics. The survey data is really important. We also need to be thinking critically about what are the key performance indicators of employee engagement right now, every day in the work that we're doing all the time. So those are conversations that we'll be having during this refresh, as well as when we get into the next long-term planning cycle. Okay, so I've just talked about all of these. This is all on the dashboard, which is a much better tool to look at these things. It's visual and it's available to everybody. So to highlight the work over the last or Q3, we completed our instructor training week. We finalized the first phase of our operations command center design. We initiated our performance management reboot. Leadership service sampling has been a huge emphasis. I actually think some of those metrics you see around like accidents are going down, complaints are going down. That is correlational. I could run a statistic on that. I think there may be some significance. So Eugene Station modernization design is the first phase of that is complete. And then what's next? So when we come back to report to you next, we will have our employee engagement survey metrics. So you'll see some movement in the employee engagement area. We're kicking off our comprehensive operations analysis. And as Jameson has mentioned, we're doing a pretty big overhaul this refresh. We've, like I said earlier, we've taken an iterative approach, right? We're never going to have it perfect. And so each year when we've refreshed, we've tried to make it better. And this year, I think we're going to take a pretty big step forward on that. That is your results for Q3, fiscal year 23, and I welcome your questions.
Thank you. That's a lot. Questions? Pete.
Thank you. That was a good presentation and a lot of stuff going on here. You look at these slides here where you got the stuff highlighted in yellow. Give an example here. The accidents it decreased, but does yellow mean that you're not at the goal itself?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yellow means we'd say that green is good to go. Yellow is kind of a watch status. So we're below our target or we're close to below our target. And then red means, hey, we're way off. We need to look at and see what's going on here. And again, when you start looking, you may say, well, actually, we're not that way off. We're headed in the right direction. But yeah, it's to kind of guide you to know this is a metric that I need to look at and understand better because it's not where it's supposed to be.
Okay. This next fiscal year is going to be the final fiscal year of this particular strategic business plan. Are you guys already thinking about the next iteration?
Yes, we are indeed. And I think it's there's a lot of synergy happening around there's a lot of planning in transit. So that's awesome. I think it's, to Jameson's point, really thoughtful exercises lead to thoughtful outcomes. And there's a lot of that happening around LTD's planning process where the strategic business plan needs to fit in with a long-range plan, a community investment plan, so that those conversations are absolutely happening. Yes.
Okay.
Other questions? Mhm.
What exactly is, or is there more information about the metric of the community value metric?
Sure. Yeah, I can show you actually. I was in community value. There we go. It's going. I clicked. Okay, so community value is defined, so the overall outcome there is that we want to establish a baseline of the percentage of the community that believes LTD provides value and improve on that baseline by 5%. So we did establish that baseline at 79% when we did our last community value survey, and we'll hopefully have one more measurement on that before the end of this plan cycle. Within the category of community value, so in addition to answering that question, percent of community that believes LTD provides value, we have access to frequent transit, and then access to frequent transit by minoritized populations, and then the community partner perception of LTD, which is something that is unmeasured yet, which is why when you look at the overview, it's yellow. It says 76% of our goal, and that's partly because we don't have a score yet in one of our metrics.
Lawrence, did you have a question? I have a question about the employee engagement survey. So that's an annual activity that happens. So I think I remember that last year when this happened, that the response, the percentage of response of employees was not, it was low, certainly in some categories. I'm thinking for the drivers, for example.
Yeah, I can.
So are there opportunities for them to have, be encouraged to participate? I mean, are they going to have access to a computer? Are they going to be able to do this on paid work time? Things to really elevate the outcome?
Yes, to all of that. And I think Michelle's here and I'm going to speak to that. And then if I mischaracterize anything, you can jump in, but we've done a lot of outreach. I think the survey is actually open still. It was extended, or is it closed? It's closed now. Okay. But we did extend it a little bit, and there was a lot of active soliciting to get people's input. There's, I think, a big concern around confidentiality. So there was a lot of effort to assure confidentiality. You know, I think the last survey, the operator response rate was over 50%, right? So that looked low in comparison to the rest of there was like maybe 70% across other areas. From a survey methodology standpoint, it's actually not that low. So I don't want to minimize that we should have 100%, right? As an internal organization employing, getting our surveys input, we want everybody's voice. But I think as far as like reliability of results, that they hold that.
So we did get an update that the overall response rate went from 58% from the previous survey. We're at 70%, 74% now. So that's good news on that. I think that's a good baseline for us moving forward, because we're taking some intentional steps to do some different things with the results, to really share those, be open with those, certainly in an anonymized way, but along with our employee council. We have an employee council here. We have an employee council here. We're going to share that with them, and then with the employee base, and then identify, the top 3 to 5 actionable items that we can do and work on those and report back on those. And I think that as we go down that path, the employee base will naturally see the value in participation in that survey. So we'll continue to move forward that way.
And last year, I think you hired an outside firm. Is that happen again this time? So it'll be apples to apples, when last year it was sort of a new system. Okay, good. Good. Other questions? Thank you. I mean, I like the division of labor. They're going to make the plans and you're going to measure them. So thanks.
Tried and true method.
Yeah. Well, it's very necessary. So thank you. Okay, I think we are at the end of our work session. Are we able to start before 7 or?
We are.
Okay,
So just.
no.
So I think what we did with this work session was we put a time that would run to, and then we said we'd start the board meeting right after it. I think what makes more sense, will provide more clarity, is to put a time limit, run the work session for an hour or whatever, and then have to start, maybe have a 5-minute kind of delay, because I think we have to do something with Metro TV. Right, and then start the board meeting after that. So we'll have that cleaned up for the August meeting, because we're not meeting in July. And that'll make it more clean for those that want to tune in.
Thank you. And I think that we're going faster than we expected originally, so. Okay, so the work session has completed and we're going to take a little break and then we'll start, 5 minutes with the regular board meeting. So thank you, everyone. was premature at the work session calling the meeting to order, but now we really are calling the meeting to order. And thank everyone for being here today. And we had a good work session. And I think it's really nice that we have gone to this format where we have the work session and then the board meeting after. So it'll be interesting to see if other people feel the same. So begin with roll call. Gino Grimaldi is not here tonight. Susan Cox, present. Pete Knox.
Here.
Kelly Sutherland.
Here.
Lawrence Green.
Here.
Michelle Weber.
Here.
And Heather Murphy also isn't here tonight, so, but we do have a quorum, so. I don't have any board comments to make, except that really appreciate all the information that was sent ahead of time. And it's so easy to, it's so much easier to be able to digest everything when you have it in advance. So no, a lot of hard staff work goes into that. So thank you for that. And Jameson, do you have anything you want to comment on?
I have no comments tonight.
That sounds kind of ominous. No
Yeah.
comment.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And any
Yet.
announcements? Yeah, okay. Or additions to the agenda? Okay. So at this point, this is always a real pleasure, and that is that for us to hear who is the employee of the month. And so for this year, this month it's June, so.
Thank you for allowing us to be here. My name is Josh Schmidt. This is Quentin Price, June Employee of the Month. So Quentin has been here since October 7th, 2021, Public Safety Officer. So Quentin was recognized on May 11th. Young developmentally disabled gentleman was having some troubles. He wasn't able to board the bus. He had a situation. It was kind of embarrassing for him, but Quentin was there, provided excellent customer service, compassion towards this young gentleman. This young gentleman, his name is Parker, is one of our employees, Jeremy Card's son. Unbeknownst to Quentin at the time, Quentin just showed that great quality that he has of customer service, and he was just there to provide the ability to be able to make a phone call, get a ride home. And during that situation, on his way home with his mom, he said that Quentin, what did he say?
Rock star or lifesaver?
He was his lifesaver. That's right. Multiple times. And that's just what Quentin does on the daily. So it's something that we just want to recognize Employee of the Month for June.
Thank you. It's your turn at the microphone.
Yeah, absolutely. Step in there.
All right. Excuse me, kind of nervous. I haven't done public speaking in years. So, I want to thank the board, thank Jameson for the opportunity, thank everyone here, and Josh Schmidt, my boss. I really appreciate the recognition, but it's basically what I do on a daily basis is what public safety, my fellow officers do on a daily basis. It's typically not fully on enforcement. It's typically customer service as well. And most of the time, a lot of the things we do out there, it gets unnoticed. But in rare moments, when somebody does notice, it means the world to us. And just want to say thank you again, and I appreciate it. And we love working for the community. I love working for the community, working for the operators, helping out people. And not only it's a job, but I feel like it's my calling. So, again, thank you.
That's your next public service announcement. Please go up to him.
Susan, while you're going up there, if I could say something, I've had the opportunity to spend some time with Quentin, usually over at the Springfield Station, and he really does embody our public safety folks. I'm going to give you an example, not specific to Quentin, but what the team does and what we have going over there. I had the opportunity to spend some time yesterday with a houseless advocate yesterday on the bus. We rode for an hour together, just had frank conversation. And she told me that in the past year, she's noticed the highest level of respect for the unhoused and the disadvantaged on our services that she's ever seen. She's been in interactions where our public safety officers like Quentin have had to deal with the situations, and she felt that she would need to intervene on the behalf of the passenger. And it was handled with such respect and dignity and in just the right ways that she was proud to be on LTD. And Quentin embodies that. I was with him yesterday, and these two young boys, remember, they were joking around with each other, and they said, "Officer, he has a warrant." And they both started laughing and joking. Now, it was a little odd that he knew what warrant was at that age, but that he would talk to someone dressed, in the uniform that we have and felt comfortable engaging that way in a joking manner with our folks says a lot. It says a lot about Quentin. So I just wanted to get that on the record that it's a real thing that's happening.
Well, I have to say, looking at this poster, this is really like Central Cast. Yeah. Is this, and I hope that you're on social media and that you will share that.
I do have a LinkedIn, so.
Okay, Pat. Anyways, it will be a great way for your friends and the community to see that and recognize you. So, and here is a letter, with a certificate. I think it posters out. And this is some appreciation. And then this pin, is the pin. So with all of your other gear. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And the poster. Okay. Yeah, because that'd be fun. This is my monthly reminder that social media is very cheap. And so, I mean, really, I think something like that is for people to post it and hashtag it, an employee of the month and so on. I think that'd be great. But if we all can do that too. So, thank you. That is always kind of the best part. So, all right, is there any audience participation? Anyone signed up to speak? No? Okay, I guess it's just us. So nothing in the public hearing and board member reports. So anyone have a report to make? Wow, we're moving right along. Okay. So now we need to approve the consent agenda. And what we're approving is the district boundary renewal, the mobility management strategy, and the updated 5310 project management plan. I think I got all of it, right? And we're approving this now, but we've had a lot of information and a lot of time to learn about these things. So I will entertain a motion.
I move adoption of LTD resolution number 2023-06-21-023. It is hereby resolved that the consent calendar for June 21, 2023 is approved as presented.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Do we need to do this one at a time?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Pete,
Aye.
Michelle,
Yes.
Lawrence,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
and myself, I say yes, so it passes unanimously. So thank you for that. Okay, we're going to do a little bit of a switch here. We're going to talk now about the proposed fiscal year community investment plan for 2023 to 2032. That's just sort of mind-boggling to look at 2032. But anyway, that's what we are going to be doing. And Jameson, it's all yours.
All right, so you definitely get the B side of the album tonight. Usually Pam would be here. So this is the community investment plan, basically our capital plan, and this is the part of the first step in the budget. This was heard at the budget committee last October, so October 5th and 22. And then it was approved by the budget committee and had a hearing board in October of last year. There were some brief changes to make the projects get aligned with the actual funding opportunities. But at this point, it's gone through the process of the budget meeting, the budget committee, the public hearing, and now it's in front of the board for approval.
Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion to approve it?
I move adoption of LTD resolution number 2023-06-21-028. It is hereby resolved that the LTD Board of Directors adopts the FY 2023-2032 Community Investment Plan as presented.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. So we'll have a voice vote. Start Kelly,
Yes.
Lawrence,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Pete,
Aye.
and myself. Yes, so again, it passes unanimously. So congratulations all the way to 2032. Okay, so now the proposed fiscal year 2023-2024, which seems that I can wrap my head around easier. Jameson.
So this is the budget for the next fiscal year. This also went to the budget committee. We had the hearing on this last month, and this was posted back in April for public comment as well. So it satisfies the requirements from the state, and it's set before you today. The total budget, including reserves, is at $182 million, and we put that before you for approval this evening.
We've talked about this, gone through a number of times, so now's the moment where we, so I'll entertain a motion.
I move adoption of LTD resolution number 2023-06-21-027. It is hereby resolved that the LTD Board of Directors adopts the annual budget as presented.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. So we'll go for a voice vote and start with you, Pete.
Aye.
Michelle,
Yes.
Lawrence,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
and Susan votes yes. So it's unanimous. So you have a budget.
We have a budget.
Okay. And then the 5311 fund transfer approval and Cosette. That's you.
Actually, John.
Oh, okay, John. And again, John, I want to congratulate you on what a great job you did with facilitating and organizing that meeting.
Thank you so much for the kind words. Good evening, members of the board. I'm John Allen with Accessible and Customer Services, here today to talk about funding and resources used in South Lane County for public transportation. So I'm planning to be fairly brief and concise in my comments, but I'm happy to expand if the board has any questions. How this first came about and the resolution that's before the board tonight is from a request from the city of Cottage Grove. We've have a long history of working together to provide public transportation services throughout South Lane County. So we've partnered together to be able to provide the funding and resources to be able to make that work. There's currently a door-to-door service and a metro shuttle that is in the South Lane area from Cottage Grove and surrounding communities all the way down to the county line in South Lane. The city of Cottage Grove has historically been a federal Section 5311 applicant, which is a type of funding that's received through ODOT that serves rural communities, typically less than 50,000 people, to be able to provide transportation services where there might not otherwise be opportunities. City of Cottage Grove reached out and requested that we might be able to assist as the 5311 recipient in the future. For the primary reason, we both have the technical expertise to be able to provide administrative support, as well as some of the reporting requirements that come along with receiving federal funding can be fairly burdensome and onerous. We happen to already be doing that reporting. So we're already a Section 5311 recipient. So we've been there and done that for this funding in the past. We already have services, for example, in Florence that receive Section 5311 funding. And we've already provided administrative support. We know how to provide match funding using other matching types of grants to be able to make this work. So City of Cottage Grove, I think, reached a point where they were hoping to get a little bit of additional help and support and reached out to us to be able to do that. We're uniquely positioned currently as we're already able to be a Section 5311 recipient. And we have partnered with LCOG to be able to continue existing services that are in the area. So our interest is for people who are used to being able to get a ride in the current fiscal biennium, we want them to continue to enjoy similar or the same types of service in the upcoming biennium. So to do that, we would need the City of Cottage Grove to be able to transfer over resources to Lane Transit District and LCOG to be able to effectively administer these same types of services that are in place. The City of Cottage Grove passed a resolution stating as much on May 17th. And so to properly transfer all the resources over, ODOT similarly requires a resolution from the board, which states our intent to be able to take on these resources. This includes the primary source of funding would be Section 5311 funds, but not exclusively. So this also includes 2 vehicles that the City of Cottage Grove ordered, which happen to currently be on our lot here. They remain untitled while we work through these resolutions, but City of Cottage Grove's intent is to transfer the ownership of those vehicles over to Lane Transit, which we then intend to use to provide these same types of services that the community around Cottage Grove currently enjoys. LCOG, we've encouraged to similarly support us in these efforts, and they've applied for their own sources of fundings to be able to support transportation services that are outside of the city limits or where we have historically operated. And so they've been awarded a STIF discretionary grant to be able to support these services as well. We additionally have a couple of our own STIF projects meant to provide match funding and further kind of augment services that are in that area beyond the fixed route and mobility on demand services that we currently have in place. So the resolution is intended to dovetail alongside the resolution that the City of Cottage Grove has already passed through its City Council, which we would then present in a package to ODOT to finalize and execute our grant agreements for the upcoming biennium. Thanks for your consideration.
Questions?
Is LTD going to receive or take or charge any administration fee for those funds? Maybe.
That's a great question. We actually have a fairly complex funding model for South Lane services. So the portion of 5311 funds we would use is allocated towards operations. However, we would also plan to match that using STIF funds, and a portion of our STIF funding is slated for administrative overhead to help support the grant writing and otherwise administration that goes into the projects. However, whenever possible, we do try and prioritize funding to be able to support direct services to the community and try and keep the administrative overhead as lean as possible. And I think that was the intent with City of Cottage Grove intending to hand this over, is that we already have folks who have that expertise and can do that, I'm sure, a bit more efficiently than someone that's needing to do that on an ad hoc basis.
Will this service be seamless for people who are riders? So it's not like it's here and now it's here. It's going to be
That's a great question. That's certainly our intent. So I would say from our perspective, what we're trying to do is to make this as seamless transition as possible from a rider perspective. And that's going to mean a bit of additional work on, say, our part, on LCOG. City of Cottage Grove will certainly continue to be involved and at the table. But we want for our ridership for them to be able to enjoy similar to the same kinds of service that they've had without any major disruption or interruption. So we've have some experience with these types of transitions in the past. We've worked with LCOG closely on similar types of services, such as the Florence Yachats connector and Link Lane. So I think we're confident that from a rider perspective, they wouldn't notice much of a change throughout the transition. However, over time, we'll have our own ideas on how to make services more efficient and evolve them as we do all of our other services. So for the beginning of the transition, I think we anticipate it to be fairly smooth and seamless.
And the funding sustainable?
It's set on a biennium, so you'll hear from me every 2 years on the status of upcoming funding. But Section 5311 funding is federal funds that we receive through ODOT, and then STIF funding, the board's always been heavily involved in and will receive feedback from us. So those have been listed as separate projects that can be reviewed and measured. So with that comes all of the reporting requirements. So you'll get updates from staff on the progress of this over time, as well as any recommendations if we were to propose changes for the future.
Thank you. Jamison, do you have anything else you want to add to that?
I do. As part of these conversations that we had a few weeks ago, one thing that we'll be doing is reporting out annually to Cottage Grove through city council, through the city manager's office, just to give an update on what's going on with the services. They'll be keeping their finger on it as well from a constituent perspective, but we really want to make sure we're providing that service collaboratively with the city itself. We look forward to that.
Sounds like a win-win.
I have one more question along the same line. So the vehicles that would be titled over to LTD, is there STIF or 5311 funds to cover the costs for carrying those vehicles and maintaining them for us having those vehicles?
Yeah, that's a great question. So LTD has a separate project for preventive maintenance expenses for all of our vehicles used in what we call our special transportation fleet, or many of the vehicles that are used in these types of services. So we have a vested interest in maintaining the good repair of all the vehicles in which we maintain ownership or lease out. And so, yes, we do have separate projects and grant funds budgeted and allocated for the preventive maintenance of both these, as well as our larger special transportation.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, someone want to make a motion?
I move adoption of LTD resolution number 2023-06-21-029. It is hereby resolved that the LTD Board of Directors adopts a resolution approving the transfer of public transportation assets from the city of Cottage Grove to Lane Transit District as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, let's go to a voice vote. Lawrence, I'm starting with you.
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Pete,
Aye.
and Susan. So passes unanimously. Okay, and now Tom is going to talk with us about Nelson, and I'm not sure how you say that. Nygaard. Okay, Nelson Nygaard Consulting Associates.
Thank you and good evening, board. I'm here tonight to talk about moving our comprehensive operations analysis forward. We went through a process to recruit a consultant to perform that work. And we'll be back talking more as we go through the process about what all that entails. Technical details. One of the, and again, this is one of the key projects and processes we're engaged in reimagining the ride. And as the name implies, it is a comprehensive analysis of our operations. And that means that we're going to be looking at how we're running things, the routing that we're doing, the way we're doing it, looking at some of the data that we collect, lots of data, but we're going to look at some of that to help us basically fine tune the system, look at where we might be able to, want to think about adding more service here or there. And that process will take place over the next 18 months. We went through a procurement process. We had 3 bidders. We had Nelson Nygaard, who was the successful bidder. We also interviewed with a group called SRF out of Minneapolis. We hadn't, I should say, personally, I hadn't really encountered them before, but they had proposed. And then also TMD out of San Diego had also put a bid in. So again, through that process, we identified Nelson Nygaard as the successful bidder, and the results of that procurement evaluation are in the memo. And with that, I'd ask if you have any questions, and then we'll ask you to pass adopt a resolution to move this forward. Questions?
Any questions? Where are they located? Sorry.
Nelson Nygaard has several offices around the country, but this, we'd be working with the Seattle office.
Okay, so close. All
Mhm.
right. Okay, any other questions?
I have a question. In the evaluation score, was the Nygaard the most expensive or the least expensive?
They're in the middle. We had one that was more and one that was less, but they were all really close. I'll just say there wasn't a considerable difference.
Okay.
Can you explain what it was that caused you to choose Nygaard?
Well, a couple things. One is most of us have worked with Nelson Nygaard through some processes in the past. They have done a lot of work in this area, not just for LTD, but with the city of Eugene as well. And so we were comfortable with them. Again, the others weren't quite as, I'll just say, as crisp in their answers and understanding of the region, and felt that, and that was the basis for moving forward with Nelson Nygaard.
Thank you. And they can start right away.
Yes. Looking forward to it.
If I could, please, just based on the scoring, we had an evaluation committee that did this, and so it was several people scores that took that, and we were the top proposed vendor that was awarded this. So it was based on an award of high score.
And again, that information's in the
Right. Okay, other questions? Okay, can we have a motion to adopt this?
I move adoption of LTD resolution number 2023-06-21-030. It is hereby resolved that the LTD Board of Directors, acting as the LTD Contract Review Board, approves contract number 2022-49 as presented.
Second.
Okay. All right, let's vote. Pete?
Aye.
Susan? Aye. Michelle?
Yes.
Lawrence?
Yes.
And Kelly?
Yes.
Good. All right, so you have a contract.
All right, thank you.
And Brian Penn, contract number with Giro Inc.
Good evening. Thank you, Vice President Cox and fellow board members. My name is Brian Penn, the Transit Operations Manager here at Lane Transit, and I'm here tonight to provide some information on our proposal for a new contract with Giro Incorporated. So what the project aims to do is replace our operating software in the operations department with a modern enhanced solution. The current product, which we've now had for over 2 decades, it's reaching the end of its useful life and the support is diminishing. The software is used for our daily record keeping, the operator bids, scheduling, and ATU contract compliance. With the new software, we will be able to more efficiently perform these daily tasks and eliminate the risk of failure that we currently have now. So in determining the best project for our needs, it started with a request for information that was sent out in early 2022. 3 responses were received that helped us in putting together our request for proposal. We received submissions from 6 firms for our RFP, and an evaluation committee of 7 members narrowed the list down to 3 firms to move to the presentation round. After the presentations, the evaluation committee recommended awarding Giroux Incorporated pending negotiations and board approval, of course. A best and final offer was conducted with Giroux Incorporated, and they were able to come within budget without retracting anything presented in the original proposal. So as part of the proposal, they also included a comments module, which will replace an internally built customer input database that we use for tracking customer input and customer service. It's important to mention this as our customer service team was scheduled in fiscal year 24 to replace this current solution. This allows us to use this value add-on that will help improve this process without the need for another contract. So over 1/3 of the cost of the contract will be dedicated to the initial implementation and the software licensing. The implementation and first-year maintenance will utilize dedicated grant funding with 80% federal funds and a 20% general match. The contract support and maintenance balance will then be budgeted from operational funds. The request approval for just over $1.4 million includes slightly over $1 million in initial implementations with a 3-year base term. And then there's 2 one-year renewal options that are up to just over $200,000. And so at this point, I would just like to add that the staff recommends approval of this contract, and I will open up to any questions you might have.
I'm looking at Scott. So is there a learning curve for staff that will be using this, and is training included?
Yes. Yeah, there's end user training as they go through each different phase. We'll be working with Giroux specifically. They have certain people that they'll train, and then our people will train staff as we move through the process of transitioning.
It's always painful.
It is, yeah. It's a big ask when you've used something for as long as we have to move on to something like that.
Sort of astonishing it lasted that long. Computer life. Other questions, Lawrence?
So once you switch, you had the last one for like 2 decades, right?
Mm-hmm.
How long do you anticipate using this program? Or is that just, I don't know, but yeah, how long would you anticipate?
I mean, I would say, that we anticipate using it, at least through, the terms that we have on there, you can always extend. They offer, upgrades, various things. There's a lot of them that are kind of moving towards cloud-based stuff as we move into the future. So at some point down the line, that may be where most of them are at. But currently the plan would be to continue to use it, as long as we can.
Okay. So like potentially after the term is up, you could switch to a different program, basically.
It would be possible, I believe, yes.
Possible. So it's not ideal.
But not ideal, yeah.
Okay.
Pete, did you have a question?
Yeah, so the first 2 years of the maintenance or support contract is included in this, is that correct? And an option to renew that for another year, is that how I understand what you're saying?
I believe that's what I've got here. Yeah, that might be a question that I have for procurement here. Sorry. And refer to Wendy real quick.
That's how we did it, was the base term was for 2 year, and then we have 3 one-year options to renew. And we can cancel at any time. We always have a termination for convenience clause in all of our contracts. So if something were to happen, we could terminate early, but that's typically how our standard is 2 years with licensing for the full 5, and then continue on as an annual basis after that. Does that help?
I think I got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
And do you have people that you have experience with this program that you've talked with, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
So part of the process initially was reaching out to other agencies. We even did a little bit of travel and had some experiences with different agencies that currently use Giroux. Got some information from them as well during the process that was very helpful. Yeah.
Good. Good. Other questions? This will be a big thing. Okay, could we have a motion?
I move adoption of LTD resolution number 2023-06-21-031. It is hereby resolved that the LTD Board of Directors, acting as the LTD Contract Review Board, approves contract number 2022-51 as presented.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Pete?
Aye.
Aye. Michelle?
Yes.
Lawrence?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
And Susan. So unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Now the fun stuff.
Okay, and so the policy update, disadvantaged business enterprise, Wendy?
Good evening, Vice Chair and board members. Tonight I'm going to bring to you our policy update for our disadvantaged business enterprise, which I'll refer to as our DBE. So I'm not saying those big words all night, because I'll get tongue-tied enough all by myself. So I'm just going to bring to you the policy and goal updates. And so every triennium, FTA requires us to set an aspirational goal for DBE utilization. The policy seeks to create a level playing field for our DBEs where they can compete fairly for FTA assisted contracts. So to qualify to be a DBE vendor in the state of Oregon, you have to have the following guidelines met. They must be registered with the Certification Office of Business Inclusion and Diversity, which is COVID, not with the V, as well as registered with the Secretary of State. They have to have a 3-year gross annual income of no more than $26.29 million. They have to be a U.S. citizen who's lawfully admitted and a permanent resident. A male or a minority, or excuse me, a female or a minority. They must own 51% of the business and control the day-to-day operations. So basically it can't just be on paper. They actually have to be a part of the business. They have to be licensed in the area that they're contracting for. And they also have to have a net worth no less than $1.32 million. And so in order for us to obtain this goal, we have to do what, the vendors also have to be certified in the commodity that we're requesting. And so on top of that, it has to be a federally funded project and it has to be over $10,000. The needle in a haystack. There's a defined process that we have to go through each triennium to set our goal. And so how that process and methodology is we have to consider the number of projects that we have coming up in the triennium. And of course, we use our CIP, which was just approved tonight, thank you, to help set that. The number of DBEs that are registered in our area and in that commodity field. And then also we compare that to the number of firms overall, the majority firms that are also registered in this area. And then just their relative availability, there's conversations with them, checking schedules and things like that. After we went through this methodology, the new LTD goal is going to be determined to be 8.8%. This is an increase from our previous goal of 2.9% in the last triennium. And substantial increase is due to the Operations Command Center project and also the Eugene Station Modernization Project. A lot of our DBE vendors are in the construction field. And so that is where those numbers are so increased. Once we determine the goal, which we have, we advertised for 45 days and we did that publicly to open for public comment. We wanted DBE vendors to share if there were anything we missed, any concerns they had with that, but also if the public had any comments. After that, we followed by a 15-day period just to extend that time so that anybody who missed that cutoff could still respond. So we did that, and during the course of that 45-day advertisement and 15-day extension, we did not receive any public comments. So the next step for us is to have the board adopt it, if you will. With the successful adoption, we'll then submit our goal to the FTA for their concurrence, and then that will be our new goal for the next triennium. So at this time, I'll take any questions you guys may have.
Thank you. You're confident of the increase?
To be honest, it's a little scary.
It's a stretch, yeah.
We have a hard time now meeting what we have, but with the projects that we have coming up, we've been really working very closely with those vendors that have been awarded the prime contractors on our CMGC process. And so they understand that importance of hitting those goals and making sure that we're doing a level playing field for all of our vendors.
Right.
and making sure we're subcontracting with those proper vendors. And so that's something that me and my team will be very, very, very watchful on and making sure that we do that. And when we met our goals last time, it was also when we were doing the Santa Clara Station. So it was easy to get that. And that's usually when like these bigger projects come along, then it makes it a little bit easier to get the goals higher.
Okay.
We also do a lot of outreach. There's a lot of things that we do in the community to help build that, different practices we have. And I can send those along if you guys were ever curious about that. We do report that to the FTA. But that's something else we want to increase also is our just outward participation and making sure we're providing opportunities and helping people get registered for COVID so they can get these types of opportunities from us and other agencies like us.
Is there a consequence if you don't meet the goal?
FTA doesn't like that. It is an aspirational goal. They do understand. And so when that happens, we have to do a shortfall analysis. And that gives us like, we have to do an explanation of why we missed it, what steps we took to correct that, how we're going to fix that in the future. And so it's just, it's not a penalized thing. It's just kind of a, hey, this is something you need to correct. We need you to pay more attention to this. I do believe that if it was something that were continued and we did not do those efforts, that they could restrict funds from us. But of course, we're going to do all we can to make that happen.
Thank you.
Wendy, so it's going up. And you
Yes.
said that part of it, your confidence in that is the big project. So if there isn't a big project, does the number get reduced?
Yes, so
Okay.
the next triennium, what would happen is we would also do the same process where we
Sure.
look at the CIP, and if we have a lot of big projects coming up, that could be another reason why it would go up, because this last triennium we didn't, it actually went down. But there's other steps we're taking also to do just on the day-to-day procurement work, to make sure we're doing that outreach and making sure that those quotes and things we are doing, we're gonna have a little bit of a bigger hand in that to make sure we get that. So even if it stays at 8.8 or if it goes up, that we're gonna be doing all we can to make sure we hit that.
But if it went down, just because of the circumstance of that's not, you're not penalized for that?
No, oh no,
Okay.
no, it's just truly based on the market.
Sure, okay,
So yeah, so that's not, it's just if we don't meet it, that's when it's kind of frowned upon.
sure, okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Does anything to add?
Just one thing, we have a diversity, equity, and inclusion council here. It's actually a council that has a board signed charter, and we'll be bringing them before you later this year to give an update on the work that they've been doing. They're in the process of developing a work plan, and part of the work plan is to operationalize some of those efforts. And this clearly is one of those items that they'll be helping out with to make sure that we're scouring to meet that goal through all different quarters. So I just want to share that with the board.
And we're also working with the events committee as well. So we're doing that with the employee and community base. And so I have like 13 little advocates out there helping with this as well. So trying just to engage as many of our staff members and make this something that's, known in the community that this is something important to us. And this is not just a goal for us to meet, but actually truly to break down those barriers, break down those walls, and give us an equitable platform for all of our members.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions? Motion? Yep.
Is it okay if I say something? Can I
Sure.
make a comment? I just, having those aspirational goals, sorry, my name's Ari and I'm on Wendy's team. When we have capital construction projects, it's easier to make those larger goals because our subcontractors we can tend to draw from that pool of businesses, whereas we are actively trying to build up our pool of consultants and technicians and, other folks in more of the service industry that we don't really, that right now we don't have a big pool. And honestly, across Oregon, there isn't that big of a pool of those providers. But when we get into capital construction projects, we have that opportunity through our primes, and we drill down our primes and our awards go out partially based on the what they do with their subcontractors. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank
to
you.
kind of help round out the picture.
Right. Thank you. That's helpful. Well, I would think with the community engagement, this is another opportunity to.
And we have it under our strategic business plan as well for the community value, so.
Good.
I would just like to acknowledge and give you credit for having that aspirational goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, hold yourself accountable to the organization accountable. It's a good thing. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Someone want to make a motion?
I move adoption of LTD resolution number 2023-06-21-032. It is hereby resolved that the LTD Board of Directors approves the updated disadvantaged business enterprise policy as presented.
Second.
All right, let's have a vote. Kelly,
Yes.
Lawrence,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Pete,
Aye.
and Susan. Yes, so unanimous.
Thank you very much.
You know, it also occurs to me, especially on this one, if there's anything that we can do as board members to support and help with
I appreciate
outreach.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love that. Outreach would be, I think, a really great opportunity.
Right.
So let's work on that. Thank you so much. I
Okay.
love that idea.
okay, so written reports, operations with Cosette, the performance report for 2023.
Let me just.
Is there a report?
There is a report. So each of these reports, typically we just offer if there's any comments
Okay,
on any of those.
that's just on all the information that we have in our packet. Okay.
I can highlight a couple things if I could. That operations performance report, that is a new report that Cassette and her team put together, has a lot of information. We'd like to get your reaction on that. And I can talk with you later, but it has a lot of information there. Some really good points in here. You hear a lot of transit systems talking about pre-pandemic ridership and chasing after it. So for the year to date on MX, ridership's up 21% for the fiscal year on MX. Now that's still 33% below pre-pandemic, but that COA is going to help us to understand what we're actually dealing with. But the ridership is moving in the right direction. On our fixed route, which these are our non-MX routes, it's up 21%. So we're moving in the right direction in terms of ridership. I just wanted to point that out to the board. In terms of the item C, the monthly department reports, just a couple items there. Our materials management group, that's a group that's under Wendy's charge. They manage a warranty program and they'll be reporting on that at a future board meeting. But for Q3, they saved us about $115,000 just in managing warranties. And about $270,000 for the year. So very proud of that work and wanted to give them a shout out here. In marketing, the marketing team is working on launching a new marketing campaign that's designed to increase our employer group pass program. So this is where we go out to different businesses and encourage them to provide passes to their employees. So you'll see that coming, and that will be partly social media. And Pat, you want to color that in a little bit?
Yes, it'll be a social media program, but also our new employee, Madeline Soldano, will be out meeting one-on-one with businesses, continue to do that work. We'll also later, probably as we get through the summer, we'll see some more videos and some things with the employers talking about what a great opportunity this is to be able to provide this benefit to employees. And then the other side, some employees talk about how this all makes their life easier and works. So we'll have that campaign in hand in late summer, early fall. So we'll launch on that. We're in the meantime still working on it.
Sure.
Madeline's out. So.
Okay.
And
then one last point, in transportation, we recently had a operator class graduate. I believe we started with 9, was it 9 to begin with? 7 to begin with. We ended up graduating 2. So we continue to have some challenges there. We are, Pat's team, marketing continues to tell the story to get people to the door. We will be implementing a organizational goal within the upcoming strategic business plan, but we're actually starting on it now. to make sure we have all hands on deck and for recruiting. It's not just an HR job. It's not just Jake and Cassette's issue. It's an organization issue. And everything we talk about in terms of mobility management and being able to provide those services all rest on our ability to provide consistent service day in and day out. So that will be an organizational goal, and we will be asking for your help on some of that as we move forward. So I just wanted to share those items with you. And lastly, I would like to recognize a key member of our team that will be leaving LTD officially, but certainly not leaving being a partner with LTD. I want to recognize Tiffany Edwards. Tiffany has an opportunity to take a leadership role within the Eugene Chamber of Commerce. She'll be working on projects and programs that are in alignment with what we do here at LTD. And we're so proud of her because we consider that an extension of us, her extension of us in this new role. So I wanted to take the opportunity to congratulate her and wish her well, and to publicly tell her that you'll always have the support of LTD as you move forward. Thank you.
Good to have allies going out in the world. So we're going to miss you, Tiffany, but congratulations. And you will still be in a key position to help. So, okay. Any other comments or things to talk about before we go to executive session? Do we have any information for future board meetings? We don't meet in July, so it won't be until August. So. Okay, well, I adjourn the meeting. And we now go